To be joined by Candice Michelle to talk about iconic wrestling superstars in the 90s and the 2000s. I suppose, Candice, if I can start off by asking you, you started off pursuing a modeling and acting career and you moved to Los Angeles in 1999. Was that the first dream?
Yes, it was actually. I grew up watching professional wrestling every Monday night with my stepdad, Ken. But I think to me back then it was like not achievable. You look at them like they were superstars. Like they were like my cartoon heroes. And so I never thought that was even something possible. And so coming to LA to have what I thought was my dream, it really kind of detoured, and then it led me to auditioning for the WWE.
Yeah, and I suppose, Candice, you mentioned there about moving to Los Angeles, but in high school you did play an awful lot of sports. You were in varsity basketball and you were very athletic and sporty, so it wasn't the transition, although you did go into the modelling, the fashion side, you still had a keen interest for the sporting side growing up as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, doing basketball was my life, but then I kind of had to choose, like, is that my career or am I going to move? But being, into sports, it's always part of who I am.
Yeah, and I noticed when you moved to Los Angeles, before you moved into applied for the WWE Divas search, you appeared in many TV sitcoms like Party of Five. You'd guest appearances in that, and other sorts of roles there. You'd in Dodgeball and Seventh Heaven and Anger
Yeah.
Management. So were you trying to pursue that dream, and how did that go from pursuing TV series and films, then all of a sudden to go to deciding, do you know what, I'm going to audition for this diva search that the WWE are undertaking throughout the United States?
Well, I think when I moved to Los Angeles, I think about 19 years old the first time I moved out here. So I was really discovering myself. And I moved out with a modeling agency doing different modeling work. And then obviously it kind of goes hand in hand out here in California with the entertainment. So I was starting to audition for TV shows and just discovering, is this for me? What do I want to be on these shows? Will I do the work to be on it? Will I take all the rejection that goes along with it? And so I was actually with a modeling agency, and they called me and they said, I got this like weird request that you can audition, to be for the WWE and do this diva search. And to him, it sounded so weird. And for me, it was like, oh, like this light bulb goes off. Like, heck yeah, I totally want to audition for this. Like, it's being athletic, it's being on TV. It was kind of like me finding my way, really.
Yeah, and I suppose the Diva search, it was nationwide throughout America in relation to the Diva search, and obviously the competition was ferocious. But obviously, you applied for it, you got far, you didn't win the Diva search. So did you honestly thought, well, that dream has died there and then, and want to go back to acting and TV series? Did it come to you a surprise when Vince McMahon and the WWE made you an alternative offer?
Yeah, because I was in California, I experienced like rejection is kind of part of this job. If you would go out for modeling gigs or TV gigs, it's just a daily interview process you go through. But this one, when I was kicked off, I was like, wow, like I was perfect for this role. I'm like, I don't understand. Like it was definitely challenging for me, really processing why I didn't get that. And so coming back home and then getting that phone call, it was better than winning, in my opinion, because I got a 3-year contract versus the 1-year contract. And I didn't have that stigma attached to me that I had to play that role right away of being the contestant or diva search winner.
Yeah.
Instead, I mean, they gave me a role. They're like, oh, you're a makeup artist, but I got to get out of that really quick. I didn't have to be in that role for a whole year, which allowed me to just explore that new platform that I had just achieved.
Yeah, and I suppose you came in your first year in relation to W. You came in as this makeup sort of artist in relation to the sort of training, I know, to train to WWE superstar, to put you in the ring in relation to real combat matches, it takes a long period of time. So they devised this character for you, and it was more engaged in relation to competing in these alternative matches that you would have done in your modeling career anyway, as such, in relation to shoots and in relation, and you had an awful lot of first time matches. But do you think in relation to that, WWE's thought behind that was where the audience that they have, it's a young male demographic, it's between most of their viewers, it was the Attitude Era, it was between most of their viewers were between 18 to 35, and they sort of liked watching their wrestling, their Undertakers, but they also like to see those sort of female, I say, light sort of entertainment matches, if it's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I mean, I think nobody's really a stranger to that whole theme, sex sells, right? I mean, it's true whether people like it or not. I'm not a person who's offended by that kind of a slogan. Some women are like, no. I'm like, hey, you know, it's just, I guess that was a character I played, and it's kind of part of who I am anyways. But at that time, you know, Vince was going around saying he was looking to pretty up the division, which is why he went to Hollywood to one of the biggest modeling agencies and brought all these models to, you know, compete in this contest. So I kind of knew, like, you know, being just thrown in there was just kind of getting all these pretty girls on TV and really kind of going this new path that he had. But for me, you know, I had bigger plans. You know, he didn't have those plans for me, you know? And so you just have to, if you get an in, you get an in. And then it's what you're going to do with it to go from there.
Yeah, you mentioned that to get your foot in the door to the WWE. Once you have your foot in the door, you can develop. But in those early sort of year, in relation to those matches that you have in front of big crowds, and you're basically in your lingerie, do you sort of blacken out the sort of audience? Do you pretend that there's no one there when you're sort of fighting that wrestler? Or you've pre-rehearsed these matches and you've trained them in relation to the reactions and the pops, but do you just start to concentrate, do you start to work the acting with the female wrestler that's a part of you? Because I imagine it can be a daunting stage fright experience, that if you're just going out there and just bare lingerie and someone in the crowd catches your attention, you could get lost, and then all the butterflies takes over and your career could be over just as soon as that.
Well, it's actually the opposite of what you said. You know, for me, all the nerves, I think a lot of wrestlers, we all have nerves, we all have a little bit of that in us, but it all happens behind the curtain. Like the moment you step out, it's just like you're kind of, this alter ego just takes over, you know? It's like, it feels like home. You don't, I think it's part of your adrenaline rushing. Like, it doesn't feel so scary. Like, I've never felt scared once I'm out there, you know? It's before I go out there, like, oh no. But the thing about, you know, really noticing one person in the crowd, that's actually kind of the key to everything. And when I learned that, I think it was Arn Anderson, I was working with Arn Anderson and Ricky Steamboat. I really credit, like, when my career kind of really hit a high point when I was wrestling with Beth Phoenix, they took a big interest in us and really training us and helping us out. And Ricky said to me, he's like, Candice, you find the one person in the audience. If you connect with one, you connect with everybody. Because it's impossible for me to connect with everybody, right? But by connecting with one, it's like, wow, that person would feel me. And it's crazy. It's usually in the hold, you know, you get in the hold and you're just kind of like, I'm looking and I'm like, who's gonna help me get this energy? Because I'm blown up, I'm exhausted, you know? I'm like, somehow I gotta fight through this and hopefully get a comeback and, you know, see where this all goes. And so it's really a powerful thing when you learn that little tool, and I've taken that with me in my life today.
Yeah, and I suppose initially starting off in relation to the training, I suppose an awful lot of your original training was simple holds, simple locks, ground mat sort of stuff. And you would be in the training center where there with the WWE, and you would probably see the Lucha Libros, the likes of the Rey Mysterios, the Jeff Hardys, do all these sort of crazy aerial back ropes and learn how to fall properly. But was that your first time learning how to fall from heights or being lifted up, and sort of that's something that you've never experienced before? It's a very dangerous profession. We all know hard stories about wrestlers like years of experience, like Jamie Noble, for example, who just fell in the wrong way at the wrong time and it can have serious impacts. So in that sort of process for you, was it just mainly ground mat wrestling holds, nothing in relation to falling for the first few months anyway?
Actually, I didn't get any of that training. You know, the pros to me getting thrown on TV right away is I was in. You know, I got this contract with WWE. I didn't have to go to all the wrestling schools. I was in. The con to that was I had to figure out ways on how to learn. And when you come into this world of lights and glamour, and like you see like the Hardys and the Lucha Libres and all these big superstars doing these big moves, I didn't ever think about, oh, I need to learn how to fall. I thought, how can I get to the top rope and jump? You know, like you don't process it that way when you come from Hollywood the way I did. And so I had to really backpedal when I started to get in there, because I wanted to do everything super fancy, and I didn't even know that there was a way to start. I knew nothing about that. And so I would go and I would rent a ring near my house, and it's like the worst looking ring you can ever imagine. Yeah. There's like broken down chicken coops over here, weird dogs back here. It's in like a garage, and the door's off of the garage, and the owner's like telling me not to go bump over here. And I found this wrestling guy named Shannon, and he's like, I'll go with you. It cost me $3 a day to rent it. And you know, he was just kind of trying to run through the steps. And then I would go to the house shows early when the refs would set up the ring. And I'd get in there with the refs and be like, hey, can I get in here with you? And they would slowly start teaching me. And once they saw I was serious, more and more wrestlers would start helping me out. And that's how my training was on the road always. I never went to the school.
Yeah, and I suppose the WWE, it is a competitive environment. And in relation to the teammates, we all know in sports, teammates, and it can get competitive. And in relation to, you're in a women's division, everyone wants to make that step up the ladder. It's the sort of a food chain. I know you can be friends in relation to outside the screen, but everyone wants to progress their own career to reach to the top. So I imagine there can be sort of friction sometimes, and like the male wrestlers, there can be friction in the women's division. I imagine it'd be equally or similar, and just some people just don't get along, I suppose, and trying to make the step. And I suppose what can appear to be your friend sometimes can be your worst enemy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the hard part of the business, because you're with this group of people more than your own family. And so it is like your family and your sisters and your brothers, and they're kind of like your ride or dies. At the same time, all the women in one locker room are vying for one title at the time. There was only one women's championship. There's no tag teams. There's no Diva championship. There's one that was split between both shows. And so I did have some times I'm like, wow, this is my girl. And then they do something in the ring where I was like, wow, like you totally kind of stabbed me in the back there. And I just had to take those as learning lessons. You know, I was way less experienced at that time over a lot of the girls. But then there's also the girls where like Beth Phoenix, you know, like she works for the match. It's not about her getting all of her stuff in or me getting all my stuff in. It's about how can we work for the crowd, you know? And so when you find somebody like that and you just click, it's like you just have the best matches. Yeah. And, you know, and so we did have great matches.
And I suppose for you, in relation to the breakout came for you in relation to the storyline, in relation to Vince's Divas, and it sort of progressed from there. You sort of started off in a stable with Torrie Wilson and Torrie Wilson and Victoria, and basically then you sort of turned on the new Diva search winner Ashley Mazzaro, and basically Mickie James and Trish Stratus came to her back on, and it sort of continued, created a sort of year-long sort of friction that propelled G to the top of the sort of women's division.
Yeah, it's actually funny. I remember creating that name, this Vince's Devils, and you know, you get creative and you're having fun, because truly, like, I adore Torrie Wilson and Victoria to this day. We're great friends. And so when it kind of takes off, it's actually like, oh, we're actually doing this. Like, this is, you know, pretty cool. And to this day, when we get together, we bring that up, and it's become a great memory. And it did. It created a storyline for us and just really kind of getting in there, because whenever the new Diva Search would come in, or that contest, you know, that was a huge focal point, especially back then when we got such limited time for the females to wrestle, right? So when the Diva Search would happen, that would take most of it. And then, you know, so it was a nice way for us to incorporate that and, you know, be creative.
And in relation to 2006, 2007, the sort of push began to come in your career. Were the writings inform you? Like, did Vince come to you and say, Candice, we're really impressed the way you're getting on. We feel now it's time for you to take the next step. We're going to give you more matches on singles matches on a continuous basis. In relation to, you were doing an awful lot of tag team matches, battle royals, but all of a sudden now you're thrust into singles actions on a weekly basis.
Yeah, no, it doesn't happen like that. Especially back then, you don't get any feedback. You arrive that day, you get ready, and you just are ready for anything. You're ready if they're going to tell you you're going to wrestle, if you're going to be in a pre-tape. The people at that time that were, you know, the superstars of the show, or the headliners, they get all that information. People like us back then, we got nothing. And so it's hard because you can't get into the character, you can't pre-plan how you're going to do this pre-tape, you can't think of extra things for the match. You know, it's really like, you got an hour, let's put it together and go do it. But there was one time that I will never forget, and I was wrestling a match against Melina, and I think we had about 2 minutes of wrestling time. But it was that match where Vince literally saw the crowd reacting to me and saw me 100% like in there for wrestling. And I went back to the locker room afterwards, and I was starting to shower. I had all my clothes off. I was about to go in the shower, and there's a knock on the door, and another one of my fellow divas at the time was like, Vince is at the door and he wants to talk to you. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? Like, and you don't stop, you don't get dressed, you don't make him wait, you know, so I just throw a towel around me, and I go to the door, and he's like, that was awesome, kid. That was good work tonight. And for him to leave Gorilla to come to the locker room to say that, I was like, okay, I'm doing the right thing, you know, and so that was a really cool moment for me.
Yeah, and I suppose, Candice, in relation to getting that first title match and that opportunity, you competed in a battle royal first of all. You sort of had your chance against Trish Stratus, and was that really the testing ground for you, that first match in relation to Trish Stratus? You weren't successful, but was it really a trial run to see Trish Stratus, the blue chip collar wrestler of the women's division? Was she the real testing block? We put you in against Trish for 10, 15 minutes, see how you perform. If you have a great match, then you're ready to take on the mantle.
Well, actually, I didn't really view it that way. For me, the biggest test was wrestling Melina, because she didn't feel that I belonged there. You know, she thought she came up through the wrestling ranks, and I just came in from Hollywood, and how dare I be a wrestler, and how dare I have a championship match. So to try to work with somebody that doesn't want to work with you was extremely challenging and frustrating. And I remember going out there for a match just like, all right, if this is a shoot match, it's a shoot match. Like, we had no match put together, and I'm thinking like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I know I gotta go. I gotta go out there, you know, we're gonna find out, you know? And we ended up having a great match, and respect slowly grew. And with Trish, I actually had kind of the opposite happen for me personally. See, I feel like Trish made it look so easy. So when I would watch Trish, I would feel like I could do that. And so it's like, wait, how can she have all this time and these matches and all this stuff? And I was just so naive at that point to the philosophy of a wrestling match. And that's really, when I got in with Trish, that's when I started to learn that aspect. And so that is what really, really puts together a match, because I didn't go to the wrestling schools. You know, I didn't know, you know, there's a lockup and a shine and a cutoff and a heat and a hold, you know, and how it flows. And, you know, I didn't know that stuff. And she was the one that kind of opened that door for me and really allowed me to start blossoming and putting together matches, because I started to understand that.
Yeah, and I suppose in relation to your being a female wrestler at this time, you've made the transition. I suppose as a model in Los Angeles, in California, you can have an awful lot of free time in relation when you're not shooting, in relation to going to events, in relation to going to parties, in relation to socializing. You're a young woman now. You're thrust into the WE environment. You're traveling all over the country. You're training 3 times, 4 times a week. Did that have an effect on your own personal life, or did it take away things that you probably took for granted in relation to all of a sudden now you felt that everything, the wrestling ring, it was 24/7, 7 days a week in relation to get to the top of where you wanted to be?
For me personally, I was actually really blessed in that area, because I was with my husband already for maybe about 5 years. And I feel like we've been blessed and always being on the same level. And at that point, he was just starting to open his own chiropractic office, like literally building it from the scratch up. So when I was traveling, he was building that. So it was kind of like both of us were building our career at the same time. It wasn't like I wanted babies and he was busy working, or like he wanted to party and I wanted to work, you know?
Yeah.
I don't feel like any level's wrong, but when couples are on different levels, it makes you feel like you're missing out or you're not happy. And for that like time frame of me wrestling, it was just both of us building our career, and it worked out really great for us.
Yeah, and Melina, no, sorry, when you beat Melina to gain the championship, all of a sudden now you're the top of the division. But it almost strikes as irony. You've worked so hard to get to the top, and then all of a sudden you've sort of been so lucky so far that the injuries haven't caught up with you, and then all of a sudden you reach the top. You're going to say, right, I'm going to take it on to the next level, trying to build up a reign, trying to become to longevity in this career now, and all of a sudden, no sooner had you reached the top for you that unfortunately injuries came into play.
Yeah, you know, I wish I would have known all the things about health and lifestyle that I know now that I didn't know then. But it paved a perfect path for me. You know, I would never have wanted to quit at that point. I wish the injuries didn't happen. But because of them, it forced me to get released, and I have a beautiful family. And so really, like, a lot of things that some female wrestlers may feel like they've missed out on, I haven't missed out on any of it. I got to have best of both worlds. And don't get me wrong, it sucked. I was devastated. I was on the couch depressed. I knew nothing about recovery at that time. For me, it was like, how can I get off this couch and get back in the gym? And then I got re-injured and re-injured and re-injured. And literally, I was so bad at recovery that when I went back for my first match back after I was knocked out, my collarbone was still broken. Yeah. And somehow I convinced Johnny and the doctors backstage, I'm like, I'm fine, look, I'm fine, I can move it. And then looking at the x-ray, and my husband who's the doctor was like, it's still broken. I'm like, no, it's fine. And on that first drop kick, I shattered it, you know, so I take full responsibility. I mean, I don't know how I talked them into it, but it paved a path for me that was perfect for me. And, you know,
and I suppose
from it.
And I suppose, Candice, finally, you wrestled in the sort of Attitude Era, and basically the Attitude Era was probably one of the most highlights of the WWE wrestling era in relation to fan base, in relation to crowds, and in relation to following. But in relation to wrestling, it sort of took a twist in and went down the PG sort of route and PG sort of rating. And basically what happened in the matches that you were in, basically in your career, that sort of propelled the sort of women's division, it became very babyish in relation to that. And you think there was, it sort of suffered, and because the women's division now, Triple H has gone back to its roots, what made it successful, that the women are now competing in these Elimination Chambers matches, they're competing in these Royal Rumbles, and Triple H has gone back to what he felt worked the best. And do you think it was a mistake and the women's division suffered at that time, and now women's wrestling is beginning to come again?
I think it's more of an evolution, you know, like when we were wrestling, I didn't want to, like at my Wrestlemania moment with Torrie, there's a playboy match, that's a gown match where you strip down to a bikini and bra and panty and have a bed in there. Like, we so desperately wanted to wrestle, and we would push and push. And if you watch that match, it's like, let's try to DDT off of this bed. And there's no, you know, like anything we could try to do to break those boundaries, we were trying to do. And I think it's just great how it's evolved. You know, if people look at things that I've done and they're like, oh, you didn't pave the way. I'm like, bull crap, I did, because you're not in a pudding match. You know, like, because I did all that, you don't have to do this, you know? And it's evolved into a beautiful thing, because truly the women are amazing, and I could never compete with the ladies that are there today. They are so, so phenomenal at what they do. And it's just a blessing that they were able to break those boundaries and still be beautiful and still be strong and do those things that we want to do, you know?
And I suppose finally, for the last 30 seconds, Candice, the last question to you: would you do it all over again in a heartbeat?
Absolutely. Like, I learned, I grew, I flourished. I absolutely love that. Wrestling is one of those jobs where it hurts. It takes time. It's exhausting to the core. But when you love it, you don't ever think about that, you know, ever, you know, like you get up, you sleep 2 hours, you get up, you go, you get on a flight, you go. Like, it's incredible, like, to have that opportunity, and I do it in a heartbeat.
Candice Michelle, a pleasure talking to you, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Take care, Candice.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye. Bye.